So, I know it's traditional to read from the book, but that's boring. So I figured what I would do is just share some stories, and I can answer some questions on how this book came to be, and why there's even another book. And this book was very, very, very difficult. The book was actually due September of 2012. And I knew that I was going to be late. And I remember sitting down, I had lunch with Adrian, and I had to tell him I was going to miss my contractual deadline, where if you miss the deadline, you give all the money back kind of thing, And this is what I said to him. These were my exact words. I said, the time it's taking me to understand this idea does not correspond with the arbitrary date you put in my contract. So he said I could have until December. And 10 months later, I handed in the book. And the reason this book was difficult is because it took 3 significant turns. The book that I set out to write is not the book that I ended up writing, because I kept learning more and more and more that was profoundly impacting me, the way I lived my life, the way I saw the world, the way I perceived the way organizations functioned. And I had to try and capture that and pass on what I was learning. Here's where the book came from. I've had the great privilege of spending time with our United States military. They're pretty special human beings. And I got to meet what we call heroes. And people who did risk their lives to save others. I got to meet some of them. And I'll tell you one story, and it's the opening story of the book. So if you buy the book, you can just skip ahead. The date was August 16th, 2002, and there was a team of special operations forces, 22 special operations forces, working their way through a valley in Afghanistan. They were extracting what the government calls a high-value target. It was a very cloudy, dark night. No stars were out, the clouds were thick, and these special operations forces on the ground felt nervous. They could sense something bad was going to happen. They could just feel it in their bones. High above the clouds were 2 A-10 Warthogs, which are slow-flying, heavily armored aircraft designed to provide low ground support for the troops on the ground. They basically fly around and, help out the troops on the ground. One of the pilots in one of the A-10s that night has the call sign Johnny Bravo. Yes, he stands like this. He's got gray hair. Johnny Bravo, the only contact he had with them was over the radio, and he could sense their nerves. And so he made a decision to go down below the clouds to have a look. And he told his wingman, just hang out up here, I'm going to go down and take a look. And so he points his plane down into the clouds, turbulence throws him about, and just as he's going through the clouds, the call came over the radio. The troops radioed up to him, troops in contact, and that's what they say when they come under effective fire. In other words, bad things are happening. So now there's no question Johnny Bravo had to get down there. He makes his way down through the clouds. When he eventually pops out beneath the clouds, he's less than 1,000 feet off the ground, few hundred feet off the ground, in a valley that's maybe a mile and a half at its widest. This is only 2002, and we didn't yet have ground-hugging radar. And so he had his old Russian maps, that's what we were using back then, old Russian maps. He knew his speed and he knew his distance, and traveling at about 400 miles an hour, counted out loud to himself before he hit a cliff. He trained his guns on where he saw this tracer fire coming from, and the sight that greeted him is something like he'd never even seen in the movies. Just so much fire raining on these guys in the middle. He just picked a point and tried to suppress the fire and counted out loud. 1 1,000, 2 1,000, 3 1,000, 4 1,000, before he pulls hard on his stick and goes around. Again, 1 1,000, 2 1,000, 3 1,000, 4 1,000. Again, pulls his high G turn and goes around again. 1, 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3, 1,000, 4, 1,000. Runs out of ammunition. Fuel is good, runs out of ammunition. Points his plane up, goes to the top of the clouds, and tells his wingman, you need to get back down there. And the wingman says, okay. And Johnny Bravo says, follow me. The two of them go back down again. They're flying 3 feet apart from each other, wing to wing. 3 feet. Back into the valley. Johnny Bravo counts, and his wingman now lays down the suppressing fire. 1, 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3, 1,000, 4, 1,000, 5, 1,000. And again, 1, 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3, 1,000, 4, 1,000, 5, 1,000. That night, 22 Americans went home with 0 casualties. Somebody told me this story as I was driving across Holbert Field down in Pensacola, Florida, Redneck Riviera. And we get to where we were going, to the office we were going to, and we walk in, and there's a guy standing at the copy machine, and my friend goes, oh, I want you to meet somebody. This is Johnny Bravo. I literally met him 5 minutes after I heard this story, coincidentally. I got to talking to Johnny Bravo, and I asked him, why would you do that? Like, why would you risk your life to save others? And his answer is the same as everyone who risks their life to save others. It's the same in the military. They all say the same thing, because they would have done it for me. He goes on to tell me that there are fates worse than death. One fate worse than death is accidentally killing your own men. Another fate worse than death is going home alive when 22 don't. The question I ask myself, getting to spend the time with these remarkable human beings, is why are they like that? Like, where do these people come from? You know, in the military, they give medals to people who are willing to sacrifice themselves so that others may gain. In business, we give bonuses to people who are willing to sacrifice others so that we may gain. That every single one of us has the capacity to be like Johnny Bravo. Better, every single person with whom we work has the capacity to be like Johnny Bravo. In other words, when you're struggling, when you're in pain, when you don't think you can do it, when you're not sure you can make the deadline, when you have something going on at home that's distracting you, that someone sitting next to you says, I got your back. And the only reason they do it is because they know you do the same for them. And that's what this book is about. That's what I found out about. It's about the environment. And leaders set the tone. And by the way, leadership has nothing to do with rank either. You can be at the head of the organization and not be a leader. And you can be at the bottom of the organization. I just noticed something. I'll tell you in a minute. I'll tell you 2 things. And you can be at the bottom of the organization and absolutely be a leader. Leadership is a choice. And it is the choice to look after the person to the left of you and the person to the right of you. That's all it is. The closest thing, the closest example I can give you to what a leader truly is like a parent. Every parent wants to see their kids grow up to be strong. They want to provide education and opportunity, discipline them when necessary, and they would always feed their children before they feed themselves. That's what leadership is. It's the commitment to put others before yourself. That's all it is. And when it matters, being willing to give up the perks you're afforded as a leader so that others may prevail. That's all it is. This experience in writing this book is the hardest thing I've ever done. And my fear is that I haven't captured what I learned in the book accurately, to the full capacity. So I hope you get out of it as much as I did in writing it. So thank you very, very much. Come on. You can stand like this. Johnny Bravo. I made him all self-conscious because he really does stand like that. It's people like this that I've had the great honor to meet, that they inspire me.
I'll just leave it there.